Lisa, can you see? Oh, yes, the recording button is on. So we are, I've been designated the person to push the record button, and I see it lit up there. So you're now being recorded to the cloud. So you'll be there forever, right?
Mike, I'm on the line too.
Oh, good.
I'm just a dash.
I can see you when you speak because it lights
It
up.
shows up my house phone.
This is amazing to me. You know, my grandmother had a New York telephone switchboard in her living room in a small town long before I was born. But imagine what she'd think about this. Tom, you're about the same age. You probably went to the 1964 World's Fair. They had this kind of stuff, right?
I did actually go to the 1964 World's Fair.
It was a big trip for me. It was my 10th grade confirmation class trip. I'm sorry, fourth grade.
I was 8. I have pictures to prove it.
Yeah, in front of the hemisphere. Right?
Exactly. That's exactly what I have.
May have been the switchboard that my grandmother used when she worked on Long Island for Bell.
I think the best switchboard I ever saw, though, was in the Crown. Wasn't that cool when they were all trying to connect with the Queen? You know? Good afternoon, Mayor. How are you, sir?
I'm well. Good afternoon, everyone.
You've got exciting stuff going on. Your housing press release and
Yeah,
your energy fund. It's all good stuff.
we are on the move. Good team.
Okay. Lisa, oh, you can't see anyone here, right? So let's see. I see John Cody, Rebecca.
No, I can see them, Mike. I just
Okay.
can't see me.
Heather? Is Tiffany here yet?
Not that I see.
Okay.
I'm still trying to keep up with everybody who's coming in.
Our council is here. Hi, Stephanie. How are you? Check. I'm gonna give her a call.
Hello?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair.
Good afternoon. Thank you. Excuse me for being 3 minutes late. Everyone else is here, I'm assuming?
Yes, Lisa, can you call the roll, please? Lisa? Well, if not, I will call it. Heather Campbell?
Here?
Madam Chair is here. Rebecca Wolf?
Here.
Mayor Johnson?
Here.
John Cody?
Here.
And Richard Wallace? And Cheryl Kazaluga. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 5 out of 7. We have a quorum.
Don't you have 6 here?
Let's see. Got to, there's some issue. Lisa, if you hit *6 on your phone, you should be able to get back
Okay,
in.
Mike, can you hear me now?
There you are.
Okay, it's odd. I've got Rebecca, I've got John, Kamal, Heather, and Tiffany. Richard Wallace is not on,
Oh,
and Cheryl is not on.
okay.
So you still have a quorum.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm glad you're back, Lisa. What do we do next?
We are going to follow the run of meeting. We're going to do the finance. Tiffany,
Yes.
you can start with the finance committee, or actually that's going to be Heather who's going to do the finance committee. I'm sorry.
Okay, this is Heather, and I'm calling the Finance Committee for April 6th, 2021 to order. Our agenda is as follows. Number 1 is to review and accept the minutes from the prior month's meeting. Can I have a motion and a second?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, the motion to accept the minutes has been passed. Let's see.
You're on to the Paris report, Heather.
Yep. Are you able to screen share that or no?
No.
Okay.
I'm having, but everyone got a copy in their packet, and it'll be up on the website. You can do it. Cool. Thanks, Mike.
Apologies, it's Heather. I'm back. I lost my remote connection briefly, which just shuts me off every time that happens. So, apologies.
I think
Everyone there?
I've lost mine too. That's why Mike's doing all this.
Okay, but I'm back and people can hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. sorry, I've joined with the phone, but I haven't joined with the link yet, and I'm going to attempt to do that and share my screen. Unless, Michael, you're capable of doing that? Bear with me, it should take just a minute or two.
Heather, we can see your screen.
Okay. Curious, is there a bubble that says cap lock is on the middle of my screen that I'm sharing with you, or no?
No.
No, there is not.
Okay, it's just on my machine then. There's some weird quirk that happened this morning. Okay, shall we review just the top lines quickly? So since we have people in the audience, does that work, Finance Committee folk?
Yes, we're seeing a half a screen now, aren't we? There we go. Okay, great. It looks
Okay.
good. Oh, I'm on.
Just need to minimize you guys. Okay, there we go. Okay, so the first thing is the governance information. As you can see, have we prepared the annual report? Yes. Did we prepare an assessment of effectiveness of internal controls? Yes. We have changed the auditor in the last few years. The auditor provides no other services to the authority. We do have an organizational chart of sorts. We do have clawback agreements. We do have the mission statement posted to the website. It has not been revised or and readopted during this last year, so that answer is no. Do we have any questions on that?
Nope.
Okay. Okay. And again, I'll just go through this very quickly. We do have a governance committee. We do have an audit committee. We do have a finance committee. We meet the independence requirements in terms of members of the board. We put up a link. We have the bylaws available. We have a code of ethics, and you'll remember all of this from our organizational meeting that we have in the first of every year. Yes, we obviously review the implementation of financial and management controls. This is really more of an NA than a yes, because we don't really have a CEO or management in place. Do we have adopted policies for the following? We don't have for salary and compensation, nor for time and attendance, because we don't have any employees. Whistleblower protection, yes. Defense and indemnification of board members, yes. We do have a policy prohibiting the extension of credit to board members. We do not require the staff to submit financial disclosure forms. We do an annual performance evaluation of the board. There's no compensation made by the authority because, again, we have no employees. Ditto for the next one. And we have adopted a uniform tax exemption policy. Any questions on those? Okay, so this just basically lists the board of directors. That is, as you know, they're all ex officio members except for one position, or two positions, I mean. And so this is just the information of each of the members. I'm not going to bother to scroll through that. And the term start dates and end dates are the beginning of the year. Okay, and again, a lot of this stuff is obviously more complex for IDAs that have staff because of all the issues that you need to report on to make sure that there's no undue influence. So we can skip through all of that. Okay, here's the summary financial statement, which is a statement of net assets. You would have seen this in the audit. So we had, at the end of the year, cash and cash equivalents of 213,000. We have 40,000 on the books for land. So total non-current assets of 253. We have a small amount of accounts payable outstanding. And then the accrued liabilities are the pilot payments that go out to the city, county, and school. We were not able to execute those payments before the end of the year, so they are now carried on the liability. They have all since been paid out. Any questions on that? I'll take that as a no. And this is just the balance of the balance sheet, actually. And this is just a little P&L showing you where the money came in and went out. And that's the end of that. Okay, we don't have any debt and we have not issued any new debt. So that's straightforward. And again, we didn't dispose of any property. We do report, you know, all real property. We have a policy and guidelines regarding the use and for control of contract and acquisition and disposal of policy. And we do name a contracting officer every year. Okay, this is basically a summary of the current IDA project, which is Hudson Terrace. This is almost entirely historical data. Almost everything in the top 3/4 of it is historical, based on the original agreement. Really the only thing that changes from time to time is the current number of full-time employees, which you can see is currently at 5. And this is just, this is the net exemption, which is basically how much would they have paid in taxes if they were not exempt versus how much they paid in the pilot. In other words, how much of a discount they are getting basically on their taxes. That's roughly $63,000 in this past fiscal year. And again, have we an annual investment report? Do we review our guidelines? Did we have an independent audit? And has the auditor issued a management letter? And obviously all of those are yes. Okay, this is again just more detail in terms of uploading the financial documents and having a management letter and all of that. Procurement, this is another section. So basically this is about procurement. We have procurement guidelines. We have reviewed them. We review them annually. So I'm not going to read through all of this unless somebody is interested, but the key thing is, like, were there any impermissible contacts? And the answer is no. And this is basically procurement transactions listing, and it's basically just our basic vendors. So Stickler, who does our audit, and obviously CETC, who is acting as our administrative manager. I'll make sure I didn't miss anything there. And Lisa, I'm just wondering, am I missing Rodenhouse and Shaw? Shouldn't they be listed on this?
I wonder if there's another page that didn't come out. It scanned my copy, so I don't have another page. So if you want to send that to us, we can correct it.
Okay, yeah, because they do seem to be missing. So
Yeah.
Rodenhouse and Shaw is the other vendor, which is obviously our legal counsel. So they'll need to be included to that. But aside from that, I think this is complete. So we will make that, Lisa and I will make that edit and then submit it to the Paris Reporting Authority. Can I have a motion to accept the proposed amended Paris report?
I'll make that motion, Rebecca.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And I think with that, we are done with the agenda for our Finance Committee. And so can I have a motion to adjourn?
Heather?
Yes?
Heather, call for public comment first.
Oh, thank you.
Not a problem.
Would anybody in the public like to comment on any aspect of this report or have any questions regarding it? Okay, I'm going to assume that that is a no. So now may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I'll second it.
Second? Thank you. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Can
The
you
meeting
all
is
hear
adjourned
me?
at 1:22 p.m.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yep, I can hear you, Tiffany.
Okay, thank you. So now at 1:22 p.m., we are going to open up the full IDA board meeting. And for the March 2nd minutes, excuse me, for the minutes of March 2nd, may I have a motion and a second to accept the minutes unless there's anything to discuss or changes needed to be made.
I'll make a motion.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second it, Heather.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So moving forward. So we just all sat and heard from the Finance Committee report and the 2020 Paris report. May I have a motion and a second by the board to accept it, please?
I'll make that motion.
Rebecca Wolf, thank you.
I'll second.
Cody, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Moving forward. So now I believe everyone had a chance to fill out their Hudson IDA confidential board evaluation form. And if everyone did have the opportunity to complete their form, may I please have a motion in a second to accept and move on?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Mayor,
Second it.
is that Rebecca?
Yep.
Thank you, Rebecca. Second it, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. So now we are going to move forward with the project for the 620 Hudson House LLC. Mike?
Yes, Madam Chair. As I advised the members of the agency late last week, there was a closing on 620 Union Street LLC. And if I could ask our counsel to just give you a brief update on her involvement in that and what occurred. Chris?
Get unmuted. There we go. Sure, be happy to. So we prepared the documents once we got a firm financing commitment for the project. We prepared the documents for the IDA financial assistance and worked with counsel to the company and the counsel for the bank to get to a closing. Documents were in accordance with the resolution that was adopted by the IDA. So there was a uniform project agreement and pilot agreement consistent with those provisions. In other words, we provided for sales tax assistance and mortgage tax exemption, and the pilot agreement with the first 3 years fixed per the schedule that was in the resolution, and then the remaining 11 years with a ratcheting up again as provided in the resolution. So we will be providing a transcript for the IDA's records. We have, the executed documents. We'll be preparing that in a formal transcript, and we'll provide a copy of that to the IDA.
Are there things regarding this project? Their next steps on this project, Chris, would be they're securing construction financing. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then at that point, they would make the second installment on their fee. And then once the project is completed, they would complete that payment.
Right. And we will be awaiting their next steps until we may or may not have another step that we need to do. The documents provide for that to happen in accordance with the original resolution. So.
Great. Well, in this environment and in this economy and we're not post-COVID yet, but certainly this is a big first step in moving this project forward. And I know Mr. Kessler is very grateful to the agency for its support. And I think we all look forward to his success as he moves forward in moving this project forward. If there are no other questions, Madam Chair, I can handle the next item on the agenda if it's all right with you.
Well, I'll just announce it. The next item on the agenda, will be discussing the pocketbook factory building.
I seem to have caused a bit of concern today by putting this on the agenda. It was merely to indicate to the agency as a point of interest that the pocketbook factory, which we've talked about at previous meetings over the years, has been sold. And there is a developer who is exploring what thoughts they have in connection with developing it. And it may or may not at some point in the future be the subject of an IDA application, but we have had no formal information from the company that they plan to do that. And it's just that it's a major building in the city. And as the Industrial Development Agency, I thought it should be brought to your attention that it was sold. I should have put that in a director's report item, not as a separate item on the agenda, because it did draw some attention that wasn't intended. Any questions?
Any
Thank
questions
you,
from the
Madam Chair.
board? Okay, are we gonna move right along to the Depot District project? Mike?
Madam Chair, I spoke earlier in the day with Dan Kent, the representative of the Galvin Foundation, and he would like to update the board on the project and make a brief presentation.
Okay, Dan?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Chair Garriga. If I may, I'd like to share my screen just to provide another overview of the project and also to touch on some items that relate to questions at the previous meeting.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Everyone see that okay?
Yes.
Okay,
Can
very
everyone
good.
else on the board see?
So to start, the Depot District includes 2 applications to the IDA, which are both part of an initiative to create a mixed income housing neighborhood with commercial space and economic opportunities on the ground floor. So this includes 75 North 7th Street, which you see here on the left. It's a 75 apartment building. 70% of these units are affordable housing for folks earning anywhere from the minimum wage to $65,000 per year. On the ground floor, there are 4 1,000 square foot commercial spaces, which are prioritized for women and minority owned businesses. And as a whole, this project, as per the analysis from our economic impact analysis consultant, this project generates a positive fiscal impact for the city of Hudson with a cost to benefit or a benefit to cost ratio of 1.63 to 1. So it creates housing, creates economic opportunities, and it expands the tax base, which provides some relief or flexibility and potential relief for Hudson taxpayers. 708 State, right across the street, is 63 units. This is a project that we are going to finance through market rate sources. So unlike the other building, which will use 9% low-income housing tax credits, this is a privately financed building where we'll be pursuing bank financing. This includes 5 1,000 square feet commercial spaces on the ground floor and also some public green space next to the rehabilitated historic Depot building. This project has an even better benefit to cost ratio of 2.09 to 1. So again, we're expanding the tax base for this project. So it not only creates jobs, much needed market rate housing, but it's also beneficial to the city, school district, and the county by broadening the tax base. So this project comes as a result of our broader work on housing in the community. I know there were some questions about Galvin's housing impact. So I wanted to make sure to share with you what we've been working on over the last several years. So For the past decade, we've really been the only organization to create any affordable rental housing in the city of Hudson. Over Galvin's history, we've completed construction on 39 buildings in Hudson. We've created or preserved 225 units of housing in Hudson, 95% of which have affordable rents for low to moderate income households. Many of those are voluntarily affordable. We've also contributed $750,000 to rescue a local housing organization, which helps to preserve 143 units of affordable housing and senior housing. We operate a foreclosure prevention program, which prevents 15 foreclosures on average per year. We operate a home improvement program, which provides $200,000 per year to different low and moderate income homeowners in Columbia County to help them make essential repairs. Both of these are active programs, so if you know anyone who could benefit, please reach out to me and I'll help connect you to our team. We also developed and we're operating Galvin Civic Motel, which is a 24-room motel, which is the only high quality and supportive emergency housing in Columbia County. And that's something that we financed independently using the contributions from our trustees. So this project builds off of this work. It also builds off of our 2018 Housing Affordability Initiative, which I know some IDA members had questions about at the last meeting. As part of this initiative, we completed construction on 9 residential buildings, creating 24 units of housing. This was all done voluntarily, and the concept behind this project was to create mixed income affordable housing in the higher income parts of the city of Hudson. So people have a choice, and you don't just have affordable housing all located in one single area. So of the units that have been completed, 12 of them are currently being rented at 60% of AMI, 5 at 80% of AMI, 2 at 90% of AMI, and then 5 of the units we sold as part of selling 356 Union Street. So that is kind of what led us to the Depot District project. This project really emerged from our conversations as part of the planning process for Hudson's Strategic Housing Action Plan. It also draws from the Comprehensive Plan and the Fair Housing Act's affirmatively furthering fair housing regulations, all of which call for creation of affordable housing and all different housing types throughout the city of Hudson, so that you don't just have affordable housing segregated into one small area of any city. So part of this mixed income housing model, which I've talked about at previous meetings, is really intentional. We want to make sure that all of the units are built to the same quality standards. There will be no difference in the units. They'll be scattered throughout. We'll have the same amenities in both buildings, and the exterior amenities in both buildings will be shared by everyone in the 2 buildings. So this is really one community here. We're also going to make sure all of our staff are trained on cultural competency and fair housing. We will have building policies that prohibit any discriminatory behavior from tenants. We will establish a community advisory board, which will help in creating events and building a support network among tenants. And we're also going to offer our housing counseling, which is funded through New York State, to offer supports to all tenants and to help build connections and strong relationships. So another part of our mission, which has a really strong connection to this project, is that we've invested heavily in promoting opportunity in the city of Hudson. So that has involved several initiatives. This is just a sample of them here. We've donated over $3 million to local nonprofits, including seed funding for Bard Early College Hudson, which is a phenomenal program, and the Bridge Alternative Education Program. We created the new state-of-the-art art home for the Hudson Area Library and the Hudson Senior Center, which now, as of just recently, also has a completed daycare center on the ground floor, as well as Perfect 10 after-school program. That's all in the Galvin Armory, which I know, most of you have seen and enjoyed. We also provided $100,000 of grants last year to minority and women-owned businesses. And in addition, every year we provide $50,000 in scholarships in partnership with Columbia Green Community College, which targets support, financially and academic support, to economically disadvantaged and first-generation college students. So this is just a sampling of our really broad and deep commitment to ensuring that everyone in Hudson has access to opportunities, education, and the ability to increase their earnings. So the Depot District is an extension of this priority for the foundation. This creates 35 jobs in Hudson during construction with $1.1 million of earnings, 16 jobs with $580,000 of earnings during the operations period. It has the 4 commercial spaces I mentioned for minority and women-owned businesses. It will have hiring policies that prioritize hiring qualified Hudson residents for building, operations, and construction jobs. All of the jobs will be posted through local hiring boards, such as Columbia Workforce, and we'll also establish a community advisory board to make sure that we're maintaining and building strong connections with the different community organizations that are involved in hiring initiatives and economic opportunity. So that's why we're doing this project, and those are the reasons why we feel this project is tremendously beneficial, particularly for the low to moderate income members of the Hudson community. So I will stop there with my presentation, and I'll turn it back over to Chair Garrigo.
Thank you very much. And thank you for a breakdown of all the things that the Galvin Foundation has done for the city and throughout the county. I would like to take the moment to ask the board before we turn to the public, do we have any questions for Dan on the presentation? Board members.
I do.
Rebecca Wolf.
That's Rebecca Wolf. So I have a list of questions. I want to say I'm in support of a pilot for the affordable construction. Just to start there, I have questions and concerns. And I would just like to go through them. One question that's a new one is just in regards to the number of jobs that you're describing as being created during this. Those are jobs that you're talking about, construction jobs, right?
Yes, so that slide included both projected construction jobs and operations jobs. Victoria Stores from Camoin is here to answer any technical questions about the methodology and how those numbers were derived.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I am curious if you have plans that are concrete to partner with city workforce initiatives to ensure that any jobs that can possibly go to residents of Hudson will do so.
Yeah, we're absolutely open to those partnerships. So I'd love to connect and learn more about what's going on there and how we can tap into that.
Sounds good. Is Galvin Partners LLC, which is the for-profit construction company that has been involved in some of the construction projects that you've done, planned to be involved in the construction of the affordable housing project?
No. No, we plan to pursue the construction. I mean, this is a really big project, so it's a lot bigger than our the crew that we have in Hudson could take on. So we'll be working with a GC on this.
But you haven't identified that company yet.
So for 708 State, Baxter,
Mm-hmm.
who has shared some information at the planning board meetings, they've already been identified as the GC for that project. And we haven't finalized anything yet, but we're looking at working with them at 75 North 7th as well.
Okay, and they're not a Columbia County company, right? They're Dutchess County?
They're based in Poughkeepsie.
So that would not necessarily bring jobs to the county, but.
Well, they'll work with subcontractors and get bids from local subs. So, that's a part of their commitment and the way they approach these jobs.
Okay. So let's see. So there are some changes, it seems like, in the pilot from the one that we saw in front of the council over the summer. There had been a long negotiation, as I'm sure you remember, of some of the terms. And at the close of the negotiation, the pilot was, I think, set at 100,000 was what we had talked about. And so that seems like something we should really, you know, I feel like that's where the negotiation should start. And then also, there was a change in the number, in the units in the affordable project, over the summer, the project that you proposed was all affordable, meaning that the units at the top of the income scale were fixed at that income scale, and rather than being market rate, meaning that it could go as high as the market goes. So that seems important to bring that back to where it was. I know there's been questions about the number of like family-sized units in the affordable project, and so I'd like to hear you just talk about whether there have been changes after, you know, we've had this conversation a few times about the need for larger apartments for families. I would also really, so in terms of, so those are my questions.
Rebecca, would you like to give him an opportunity to answer these questions, or you want him to answer these questions in an email?
Well,
this is like a whole page.
Yeah, I don't know, would you like to, I guess we could break there for some answers, and then I do have questions about the market rate development as well.
Okay,
Sure.
that way we can give others an opportunity to speak as well.
Yeah, so to the first question about how this compares to discussions we had previously with the Common Council, I believe we addressed in our first meeting here some of the rationale behind how this application to the IDA, how we came up with the structure that we're proposing. And it's really driven by the need to provide a really competitive application to the state for this project. You know, of course, we could increase the pilot payment, but what that's going to do is it's going to cause us to have to increase the amount of subsidy that we ask for from the state. So it's going to make the project less competitive. And since last summer, it's only gotten more competitive for these funding sources. So that's how we got to that number, and I'm happy to talk more about that, you know, if you'd like to, following this meeting. As far as the unit types, stemming from those conversations last summer, we made some changes to the unit mix for this project. We used to have studio apartments through conversations actually with Chair Garriga at the time. She encouraged us to remove those studio apartments and replace them with 3 bedrooms. So we made that change, and right now across the 2 projects, about 54% of the units are 1-bedroom apartments, which is consistent with the market demand in Hudson, where about 54% of the demand is for 1 bedroom. So our unit mix is roughly proportional to, you know, what you see in the market demand. And, you know, we've done our best to, you know, despite some of the financial constraints for the project, to increase the number of family-sized units, 2s and especially 3 bedrooms, in response to community input. And as part of this IDA process, in response to Chair Garriga's input, we've also increased the proportion of those 3 bedrooms that are affordable. So now all 8 of those 3 bedrooms are 40, 50, and 80% of AMI. So we've really tried to show responsiveness to that feedback and you know, increase the family units as much as possible for this project. And there was also a question. So we'd been looking at an HCR subsidy funding source that provided funding up to 130% of AMI. That's no longer the source of this project. So, you know, we're trying to just include market rate units for that particular income band, but we've still got the 70% of the units that are 40, 50, and 80% of AMI. So I hope I caught all of the questions and was able to answer them. I'm certainly happy to talk more and provide further detail.
I can pause.
Thank you. Yes, please pause. Are there any other questions from the board?
Yeah, this is Heather. I have a question.
Yes.
I guess I'll skip to the main thing. When we were talking before about all of the Galvin properties that have been warehoused for many years, and having all of those units off the market for so many years, which is clearly contributing to the lack of housing, the rationale that you gave for not you don't have the bandwidth to renovate them and get them on the market quickly, but you also didn't want to sell them because they might in fact be turned into market rate housing. But at the same time, you're here asking for a significant tax break in order to create market rate housing. And I'm a little confused by what I would call an apparent conflict and or an ironic position.
So to clarify, so first, I wouldn't characterize our approach as warehousing of properties. We've finished construction on 39 buildings in the city of Hudson, and we've developed more affordable housing than anyone. We're the only organization developing affordable rental housing in Hudson over the last decade. So we've been, I think, extremely active in bringing these properties online. And this is consistent with models you see in other communities. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the idea of a community land trust or land banks, where you have properties that are owned, and then the goal is to ensure that they turn into rental housing, affordable housing in the future. So that's really what we've been doing. Of course, we haven't been able to do all of them at once, but we're making sustained progress every single year, creating more units. Now, my comment about what would happen if we were to sell these properties wasn't just about whether they turn into market rate housing. I think if you look at many of the purchases that have happened in the city of Hudson over the last several years, you see a lot of buildings that are purchased for second homes. That's the most common use for a building that's purchased in the city of Hudson currently. So market rate housing, especially rental housing, is something that has been identified through the Hudson Strategic Action Plan as a priority to help bring down the cost of housing for everyone. And even the short-term rental legislation that was passed by the Common Council, that aimed to expand the supply of market rate housing. And in that case, really reduced the tax base because you were no longer getting that that lodging tax income from each of those buildings. So in this case, we're producing market rate housing while expanding the tax base, while expanding the amount of revenue to the city of Hudson. So I think it's consistent with that goal and that wonderful goal that the Common Council, the Strategic Housing Action Plan, is pursuing to expand market rate housing. But in this case, not only do you expand the tax base, but it's also guaranteed to be rental housing, which is really the important need that we want to meet here.
And Dan Hubble from Galvin here, attorney for Galvin as well. I just also want to remind everyone that what's before the board right now are these two projects within these applications. It's not necessarily what these other properties are that Galvin has elsewhere that's before the board. And so, in terms of what's relevant to the pilot and to the incentives that we're requesting from the board, it is, these two projects. That's what we have in front of you. The other projects, and I can't even say they're other projects, the other potential projects that Galvin may have with regard to other properties, which are all speculative, we're happy to have those discussions. And Dan, I think, has been very forthright in his responses. But, those discussions are outside the scope of really what's in front of the board right now.
Thank you for that clarity. Rebecca, you have how many more? You have a lot more?
I think I have mostly one larger question. I mean, to a certain extent, I disagree that it's irrelevant to contextualize this request, which is for you know, a large tax break for market rate development. I mean, and again, I want to really make clear that I really support a tax break for non-market rate development in this case. But that, I mean, it's, you know, there are certain questions that really are completely relevant in that I believe that part of the model of the Galvin Foundation, as it has purchased many properties in the city of Hudson, has been to create what's called an asset-based development model, such that the sale of properties can support the development of affordable housing. And so, I mean, one thing that I really want to, like, we've, you know, Dan and I have actually worked together really closely on the anti-displacement learning network grant project, in which we observed that one of the effects of, well, there's, you know, there's some really specific effects that have happened in the city of Hudson that have really shut out lower income people, and especially people of color, from building equity in the city. And such that at this point, it's virtually impossible to find a property that is affordable for a low income family to purchase. So one question that I have is, has the Galvin Foundation considered, rather than a market rate construction, developing, you know, because I honestly, I find the argument that, you know, it's really a great idea to develop this market rate project because it deconcentrates poverty. Like, we're not looking to just literally deconcentrate affordable housing. We're looking to build stability and equity in the city of Hudson for residents of the city of Hudson who are low income, and especially people of color. And so a much more creative approach, it seems to me, to this problem would be to think about ways that you could develop a property in which you make it possible for tenants who are low income and who can afford rent at a subsidized level to become owners. So I'm proposing that the Galvin Foundation needs to think more creatively about this other development if you're requesting tax abatement. So that's my.
Thank you. Maybe they'll put that on their list for the next possible project. But right now, before us, we have this project that we're discussing, a need that is in the community. And I'm gonna move this time now to the public. Rebecca, if you have any other things that you can think of, you know, you are always welcome to shoot an email to Dan, including the board, if you choose so, or just between you and Dan, if you choose so.
Okay, can I just say one sentence? I just want to make all of the public that are here aware that these are two separate pilot requests. There's a pilot request for the affordable project, and there's a pilot request for a market rate project.
I think we know that by now, but thank you for another reminder. And
Chair
we're gonna
Garrido.
pause and move along to the public. Hubble.
Chair Garrido. So I just want to also comment real quickly on the two different pilots. So again, there are two different projects here. One is an as Ms. Wolf pointed out, one is part affordable, part market rate. The other one is market rate. What's critical to this is that in terms of the pilot amounts is, you know, both projects, while they are connected, each project also needs to be able to stand on its own 2 feet in terms of financing. And so the pilot amounts deal with, you know, on the affordable side, having a project that's competitive in terms of securing state subsidies and low-income housing tax credits in order to be able to build the project. On the market rate side, it's having a pilot that allows the project to be financeable, the construction cost to be financeable. And so there's certain financial covenants that any lender would be looking for in terms of debt service coverage ratio, loan to value ratios that they'd be looking for. And in order to meet those requirements, the pilot is a critical tool in helping us meet those requirements to secure the financing, which then allows us to build the project.
Thank you very much. I hope that was a great explanation. We're going to move on to the public. And I am going to call on Miss Elena Mosley.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Chair Tarika. I wanted to ask about the jobs. I understood, Dan, that you spoke about the construction company and how they would be subletting or subcontracting out to include local folks to be on the job. So I also want to know about the security, maybe the receptionist or any hospitality positions that would go within the building, and if that was also looked at to employ as many Hudson folks as possible, so that these jobs do not necessarily require licensure to ensure that, you know, regular people would be able to be employed.
Absolutely. That's a great question, Elena. Thank you for that. So we will have a priority for Hudson residents who are applying for those building operations jobs. So the building super, the handyman, porters, all of that will have a priority for local hiring. And we'll be looking to partner with great organizations like yours to help identify potential candidates for those positions.
Thank you. Do you have another question, Elaine? Elena? All right. Thank you. Mr. William Hughes.
Thank you guys on the IDA for the great work you're doing. And thank you to the foundation for this proposal. I just want to bring up a couple of points. I'm hearing conversations about giving pilots to properties that are at full value. Well, normally when we give out pilots when we give them to various hotels and various other projects, it's to serve a need. And I think this depot project on both ends, on the market rate as well as the affordable rate, is serving a need in the city of Hudson. We've seen plenty of people pushed outside the city of Hudson, and I've heard people saying, well, if we build this, you're going to have a lot of people coming from the outside. That very well may be the case, because you had a lot of people pushed out of Hudson out into the suburbs, out in Philmont, and so some of those people want to come back, and we would want to welcome them back. So giving a pilot to a project like this is really beneficial to the city of Hudson for a lot of the reasons that Mr. Kent brought up about increasing the tax base, but also increasing the population. And once we get these buildings fully populated and we can have a thriving income in that area, one, you take a area that right now is sort of run down, and you really create a nice environment there. But two, you're repopulating the city, which will ultimately bring additional income, not immediate tax income that you would see from the properties, but certainly as these people earn wages and their income goes up, they will be spending local, they will be buying local, and they will be living local. And that, as we all know, drives the economy. So I certainly hope that the board would support this project.
Thank you so much. And don't forget about the retail stores on the bottom as well. I see we have one more question from Miss Vicky D.
Hi, how are you doing?
Hi, how are you?
Good. So I'm in full support of low-income housing. but a little bit concerned of how will a project of that magnitude will affect the local residents in two issues. One is the taxes, because Fifth Ward has a lot of lower income homes. And I don't want to see people moving out of their homes because they cannot afford the taxes, and at the same time giving a break to a big organization like Ms. Galvin. And the other issue is the parking. There is a lot of problem with the parking in Hudson, especially in that area. I'm not so sure that there is going to be enough parking spaces for all the units. In that case, I think we have to really reevaluate to have the units corresponding to parking, so we don't have congestions and other issues.
Thank you, Vicky D.
Welcome.
I just want to make a comment on that. I know a lot of people, I've been hearing a lot of questions about parking and the issues with parking. And the main point that I keep hearing from the public is, why are people worried about a car when a lot of people don't even own cars when we need a place to live? That's the issue. We can worry about the cars after. We need a place to live. With that being said, I see we have a hand up with Alderman John Rosenthal.
Ooh, John Rosenthal.
Thank you, Chairman Garriga. I just would like to get, for the board to get a commitment that Galvin Partners LLC, which is Eric Galloway's for-profit construction management company, will not have any involvement in the affordable housing project per Dan Kent's comment here. But so the board knows that Galvin Partners LLC has been a large driver of a lot of the construction for the foundation. And if they're not involved here, it'd be good to get a commitment for that, because that is a for-profit entity that is outside the foundation. Secondly, in both applications, it seems that each application only has 6 jobs total, I think, created, 1.3 per application. Those are full-time jobs and part-time jobs. It's unclear. The construction jobs, as someone who works in the construction industry, I could say there's a demand for hiring in construction right now. It's very tight, considering that they're working with a construction company that's outside the county. I would ask that the board scrutinizes that very closely to make sure that there is a hiring commitment within here, because I could tell you that it's very hard to find people right now for construction jobs as subs and just as regular laborers. Furthermore, for an affordability crisis, the timeline of the construction, by their very rosy estimate, is October of 2023 for finish date for both projects. And everyone knows that when you're promising to deliver on a rosy timeline like that, you could add months to a project, and certainly with approvals in the state, et cetera, because it's a very complicated project. We're looking at this thing not being finished until possibly 2024 in the spring. So it seems, given the forums that the foundation wishes to present at the planning board, everything was about affordability and affordability crisis. Here it seems to be certainly about development, which we do need. For a crisis, such a slow moving project really doesn't identify what's happening right now. And given that they do, 39 buildings, that's great. They've renovated, they have 40 more they could do. I think that, pressing the foundation to act more and immediately to address housing needs would be very good, because I think they could do a lot more than they've done, and they have done some, I will acknowledge that. And if they partner with other construction management companies outside of Galvin Partners, perhaps they could speed up some of the construction that they're doing. But I would say that, we need to be watchdogs, because if the foundation continues to want to operate here and do good, we should just scrutinize everything with the proper context. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I think that's the whole purpose of them having a committee, I'm not remembering the exact title, but that committee to oversee the project and to make sure everything is moving along and keeping the communications open between the public and what's happening and the project. We have Miss Claire Cousins.
Hello. So I was listening to some of the comments and I just wanted to respond to a couple. There seems to be a theme of concerns around how fast the project will be completed and how big the project is. I agree with John that we need to be watchdogs, but just as equally as important, it's important for us to also be advocates in the present moment, because knowing that this project is on the table and knowing that it may be completed in 2024, there's things that especially elected officials could be doing on the ground in the meantime to assist with folks that are facing the crisis of affordable housing. Galvin is not the superhero saving people that are in need of housing. There's many initiatives that could use both financial and manpower support when it comes to advocating for the people. And as far as the magnitude, I understand for neighbors that it seems like a daunting task and like, what's the construction going to be like for the neighbors? And all of these things are valid concerns, but also like look at some of your neighbors that are going through the crisis. These are the things that you can do to be an advocate without having to be so involved, is being in support of things that could change somebody else's life. You will still have somewhere to live. You will still like, for you to be inconvenienced for the period of this project being built, knowing that there will now be all of these 3-bedroom apartments, to me, that would be, it would be fair. It would be fair. I would feel good about myself knowing that I supported something that is helping somebody else. And again, I just want to urge elected officials to not get caught up in becoming the watchdog, as John stated, and like get on the ground with some of these people that are going through the crisis. If you aren't sure where you can get involved, there's advocates that are on these calls every single time that offer the work that we're doing, and there's ways for you to get involved. We shouldn't have to reach out to you for you to want to get involved. Many of you know who we are and what work there is to be done. So again, I extend the invitation for people to pull up in my inbox and see in what ways they can be involved to support in the meantime. But this project is absolutely necessary for combating the crisis on affordable housing.
Thank you so much. And I definitely agree with your comment. We have another comment from Miss Stephanie Mansu. Excuse me if I didn't pronounce your last name correct.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. This is Stephanie Mansa, and I appreciate hearing all the comments. I just have 2 questions, and I do appreciate that this was already addressed, but the size of the apartments, when I last looked at this proposal, I believe there were 8 3-bedroom apartments, and it seemed like there were a majority of 1-bedroom apartments in the affordable units with a few 2 bedrooms and then many fewer 3-bedroom apartments. And so I'm thinking about families with who either by choice or by economic conditions are living in multi-generational households, and making sure that people have a really comfortable quality of life, and that, you know, people are living with people deserve to have beautiful lives no matter where they're living. So that's one question. And then the other thing is, how do we make sure that the Hudson families who have been pushed out to Philmont or either in farther actually have first dibs on these lower income housing units? And what about the families in the Galvin Motel? Is there any plan to help reintegrate them into the Hudson community by making some of these available? So I'm wondering how the selection process goes. Thank you.
Dan, would you like to answer that, or Hubble?
Yeah, thank you for that, Stephanie. So to your first question, I'll just give an overview. Both of these buildings have a pretty strong proportion of family-sized units, 2 and 3 bedrooms. So for 75 North 7th, we actually have a lower proportion of 1 bedrooms than compared to 708 State. So for 75 North 7th, it's 39 1 bedrooms, 28 2 bedrooms, and 8 3 bedroom units. For 708 State, it's 36 1 bedrooms, 19 2 bedrooms, and 8 3 bedrooms. And we've really shifted over time to include more 2 and 3 bedrooms as opposed to 1 bedrooms. And that's part of why we eliminated studios. So we definitely appreciate that there's a need there. And that's absolutely a priority for this project. On the other question, I'm sorry, could you repeat the second part of your question, Stephanie?
How is it that how is it that folks who have been pushed out of Hudson will actually have a state, like, how do we know that they're going to be able to get back into Hudson in these units? What's
Great.
the process for vetting and screening?
Yeah, so I think there's 2 pieces to that. So we have already committed to a priority for local residents. And, that can be defined, it's not just someone who currently lives in Hudson, it can be someone who lived in Hudson over the last several years. So that's something we're going to work with the community to define. And then the other piece is it's really about building relationships. And that's why the Community Advisory Board plays an important role, because we want to make sure, which, it's easy for us for Galvin Civic Motel, because, we know who's there, and, we're a daily struggle for the staff there is to identify places where, a Section 8 voucher is accepted. So this is a building where a Section 8 voucher will be accepted. And, it's easy for us to make that connection, but there's more connections that need to be made in the community. And we want to make sure that everyone who needs this type of housing is aware of this opportunity, that they're entering the housing lottery, and that they, have the best shot at getting one of these units. So I think it's, having that priority, but also the community outreach piece is equally important.
So just to clarify, the Community Advisory Board is going to be part of the selection process, or it's a lottery? Those sound different to me.
So it's a lottery with a priority. So that basically means, if you're a part of the priority group, if you get the first priority being selected in that lottery. The role of the Community Advisory Board is to help make sure that everyone who wants to get in this type of housing is applying and has the support they need, that knows about the opportunity, that gets the application materials in on time and in completion. So that's the role of the Community Advisory.
And did you answer that question as well about with the homeless people in the hotels? They would have first priority?
Yeah, I touched briefly on that. So we don't yet, it's something we're certainly open to discussing and including, having a first priority for Galvin Civic Motel residents. But yes, it's absolutely a priority for us. And, we would love to see people move from Galvin Civic Motel into this project, because we've seen through Galvin Civic Motel how a lot of people just can't find anything in this community that's affordable. So, that's yet another motivation for doing this project.
I see we have another question from a board member, but we're at taking public comments and questions right now. So the hand that is raised is Alderman Rosenthal.
I'll just be really quick. I just want to make sure that we're getting a full verbal commitment from the foundation, at least now, that Galvin Partners LLC, Eric Galloway's for-profit construction business, will not be involved in the construction management of the affordable housing project, because that company has been involved in nearly every other construction project that you guys have done. So I just want to make sure that they're not involved in this one.
I don't even think that they can do that.
Well, I
with
think they
a
can.
public comment. But
I think, I've already stated that we don't plan to have Galvin Partners. I'll defer to Chair Garriga if that's, a requirement that the IDA would want to put in place. I know the IDA has supported for-profit projects like the hotel in the past. So if that's a requirement they want to put in, then sure, we're happy to put that in writing.
I think that's something that the city council would be interested in doing. That wasn't a matter of the board. Thank you for your comment, your public comment, Alderman Rosenthal.
Thank you.
We have, we started the meeting at 1, it's 2:18.
I have some
You
questions.
do not, you have some questions?
I have 3 questions. One of them is real quick. Am I going?
We're gonna take a question from the public at the moment, Board Member Wolf. That's why when you stated your page earlier, he was asking, you know, if you can sum it down to.
Well, I mean, one of them is something that I think is important.
I'm gonna allow you to answer your questions. I just wanted to make sure that we have.
Excuse me,
enough
Randall Martin has
questions.
his hand up.
I see that, Stephanie.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I was just stating that I was going to get to the public first before the board. But we have Rebecca, so state your 3 questions, please.
Okay. I would like to know, there's 5 or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buildings that Galvin Foundation is committed to rehabilitating and bringing back online in 2021. And I was wondering, they're on Union Street, mostly Allen Street, and one on Warren and one on Robinson. And I was wondering if you could say what the affordable units in those properties be.
Sure. I mean, I'm happy to have a conversation about our plans for other buildings. I want to echo the point from our council, Dan Hubble, earlier that those buildings aren't a part of our application for financing.
Right, but they are.
But I'm
Sorry,
happy to.
I'm going to interrupt you, and we just stated this earlier, and even his attorney stated this. This doesn't pertain to this conversation.
Well,
this is not the agenda. This is not the pilot. You can always communicate with them, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to move forward.
Well, okay, I have 2
Randall
other questions
Martin
then.
have his question.
Can I just ask my other 2 questions? I mean, they're pretty quick. I just would like.
Maybe you want to go over your questions so you can make sure that they pertain to the agenda. I'm going to have Randall
question
Martin
about
speak.
what market rate
Thank you,
will
Rebecca.
look like. So I'm curious if you could just explain, like, for the market
Oh my God.
project, what a 3-bedroom, a 2-bedroom, a 1-bedroom market rate apartment would be approximately.
Yeah, so I'll be happy to send you those numbers. Let me see. I don't have the market study in front of me at the moment, but I'll be happy to send those current projections to you following this meeting.
Sounds good.
Thank you, Dan. That was what I suggested earlier. Send them an email. We have Randall Martin.
I just want to say that, you know, this does affect the block that I live on. And, you know, I've been involved in affordable housing, the need for affordable housing for many, many years since I've been in the city. And I think that, you know, obviously the city does need it. It's desperately needed. It's desperately something that needs to be done. And, you know, and with the concerns of everybody, it needs to be done right. But I think that the project that they've outlined is visionary. I think that it's transformative here in terms of not only housing, but in terms of business opportunities. And I think it's what Hudson needs to have. And it's going to probably take a while to build, but, you know, Rome wasn't built in a day, and Hudson really needs affordable housing. And so this seems like a very comprehensive way to get that done. And that's what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Randall Martin. If there aren't any other questions from the public, I'm asking for a motion to adjourn.
I would actually just like to speak, if I could.
State your name, please.
My name's Kyle Proper. I'm I work with St. Catherine's Center for Children, and I'm actually the program coordinator that works with the homeless population here in Columbia County, and I work out of the Galvin Civic Motel. And I just wanted to state, I'm highly in advocation with this project. Working day to day, like Dan had said, the struggle's real with finding affordable apartments, and having our case managers here with our residents to be able to help find affordable housing. It's definitely been a tough struggle. So I just wanted to definitely speak on my behalf, and let everyone know that us as St. Catharines, we're very much in support of this pilot.
Thank you so much. Mike Tucker, please.
Madam Chair, before you adjourn the meeting, I just wanted to outline to the members of the agency and the public next steps. We are, CEDC as the contract administrator of the agency is in the process of retaining a consultant to review the economic analysis that has been presented and has been reviewed by the agency. As soon as that is completed, we would hold a special meeting for the agency to consider authorizing a public hearing based on that report and any modifications to the application. And then council, you would then, what would be the steps after the public hearing for the agency to either approve or disapprove this project?
Thank you. May I have a motion to adjourn if there aren't any questions for Mr. Tucker from the board?
I'll make that motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mayor Johnson. We have that. Lisa, may I have a second?
I'll second. John.
Thank you, John. Let me see if there's I'm sorry, I just got, I started looking at a comment from the chat room. If I may, it says, did the change of emitting studio apartments decrease that number? Oh, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
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 No one opposed? Anyone opposed? It is 2:25. The Hudson IDA meeting is now adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
That was quite the meeting. Well, she's something else, but all in all, though, I thought it went really well. I thought that there were enough comments that made it look like people are challenging them, but not opposing them. And I think, yeah, right. Well, and I think the issue becomes that she's more interested in getting her questions out than hearing what he has to say. She never stopped once at the end of a question to find out what his answer was, as you pointed out to her. All right. Well, I will get this study underway, and I have a call with the woman right now. I pushed her back because the meeting ran longer than I thought, but we'll get that done, and then we'll get some special meetings going while we have some momentum here. Great. Thank you, Tiffany. Goodbye. Bye.
Mike, just let you know your mic was still live. Mike Tucker. Mike Tucker. Hey, Mike.
Always interesting to hear the backstory on a live mic.
Yeah. Mike
So,
Tucker. Is he going?
Interesting. I think so. Nice to know that there's momentum.